Welcome to Three Geeks. Welcome to the Three Geeks podcast. My name is Jay. I'm joined by Philip, Mike, and Dan. We have a lot of fun stuff to discuss. This is my first time back in 3 weeks. I'm super excited to be here. It's been that long because of the Super Bowl. It's crazy. Anyway, yeah, we're here to discuss. Max couldn't make it tonight. He is playing Magic at his work. So.
You could have just ended with playing Magic, Jason.
I wanted to say at his work. But we're here. We're going to hold down the fort. I finally saw Deadpool, so that's definitely going to get some discussion here today. Mike, Dan, how you guys doing? How was your weekend, Dan?
Doing good. Sat around, watched a bunch of movies.
Nice. Mike, how was your weekend, buddy?
I was actually pretty good this weekend. I think the weather kind of helped with that, too. About time we got that nice springtime weather in the middle of February. But, yeah, watched a couple of movies, caught up on some movies, watched the classic movie that I reviewed with Dan over at McGTV, a little of the Street Fighter. And so check that out.
If you are watching us live, and I know we do have some live viewers right now, send in questions, topics to Twitter at 3geekspodcast, or you can comment right here on the Q&A. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. Let's first discuss this hashtag WTFU. Philip and Mike know more about it than I do, so I'm going to let them start this off.
All right. Well, so Mike is definitely more versed than me, but just when we started up our podcast, I remember reading through YouTube's terms of service or agreement, basically, that you have to go through when you create your channel. And it's interesting. It's very vague. And, I mean, I think one video we got a claim on that basically got revoked real quick. But it's interesting, because Mike goes into this more detail, that it's interesting to what lines YouTube does or does not draw for as far as content as what is fair use. We haven't had too much issue. Definitely Mike, I know, has had more experience. I heard your video earlier, Mike. And it's interesting because I don't exactly get... I mean, it's the same concept as, I guess, some video game. I mean, that's what I've seen more of more recently is Nintendo absolutely denying everything, which I don't really get it from Nintendo's perspective because it's not like watching somebody play a game is actually taken away from playing the game because that's an interactive medium. I get for music, if you have the entire song, obviously that's copyright. That's not really fair use. Or the people that post entire episodes on YouTube, which is hilarious because you see all these fair use claims, and I see tons of random characters with full episodes of things. So it's interesting how unbalanced it seems to be. Mike, you want to go a little bit more detail than what I've got?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have a full, detailed video about my whole experience with this system and my thoughts on it over at my site as well, which you can check out, which has the hashtag WTFU in it. But it's been a problem that's been around for a couple of years now, honestly. It's been an issue that's been on the site for a couple of years, but only until some bigger YouTube channels have made kind of light of it has there been any real movement on, demanding a little bit more, I guess, accountability and supervision on it. With my experience on it, it treads here and there because of the fact that I am aware some of the stuff I put on, especially like reactions to trailers that incorporate the trailers into the video, I feel personally they don't fall under that fair use term, and those have been flagged for not copyright infringement, but the companies like the big movie studios have claimed those and have said, hey, we're going to make money off of this video and you can't, which I totally get. That's within their realm of, that's totally theirs because I never monetized those videos to begin with because I had a feeling that would be an issue. And also, I just feel like spreading kind of my geeky love about this stuff, and those videos are kind of a way to do it. I didn't expect to make money off of those to begin with. So that being said, there have been other videos I've done that have incorporated fair use, which is to be able to use copyright materials, but to be able to use them in a way for critique or for transformative purposes that falls under like parody or satire or, like I said, an honest critique, an opinion of something, which is totally within our rights. But there are times where it feels as though certain companies or certain third parties who have nothing to do with those materials take advantage and abuse the system. And it's not YouTube's fault, essentially, really, because of the fact they have to kind of follow the law, whatever interpretation of the law is being utilized at that time, but they have to abide by it. But at the same time, YouTube is kind of a system where there's not a lot of human interaction. Like, it takes forever for you to get a response from an actual person with regards to disputing a claim or with regards to saying, no, this is wrong, can I contest this? And so that's what this movement is about a lot, is a little bit more accountability on that part, a little more rapidness with regards to responding to these disputes, with regards to responding to, false claims too. Because in my video, there are a couple of links to videos where other companies have tried to profit off of another company's property in a way that was in someone's video. The example that was linked in my video was someone utilized M&Ms, like the green M&M, for some kind of critique. But WWE claimed a copyright on M&M because of a logo having to deal with one of their wrestling duos, I believe, or something like that. I'm like, no, that's the Mars property that should be claiming that, if anything. But, the fact that there is that abuse and kind of taking advantage of a not fully functional system is what a lot of people have a beef with, too. So that's why I throw my support behind it, because aside from the React videos, there have been other videos I've done with what I feel is creative and original content, and even critiques that have, I feel, been flagged. Like, people flag just word-only critiques.
Yes.
Like, if I was to say the Deadpool movie is shit, 20th Century Fox possibly could come in and say, oh, okay, copyright infringement because you're mentioning our product. Like, it's gotten to that point. I'm like, that's freedom of speech, and plus Deadpool rocks, by the way. So that's my thing. Go check out the video. Another political thing, we're communists, blah, blah, blah.
The video Mike's referring to is down below in the description of this video. You can click on it. Also, next to that is a link to Mike's whole YouTube channel, so definitely, if you haven't subscribed there, subscribe there. So, Deadpool it's big right now. I mean, it's all over the news. All the news stories are somewhat related to Deadpool. We're going to talk about Deadpool now. We're going to give kind of a spoiler review / discussion and talk about it because it really is the thing in the news. It is the highest grossing X-Men Universe movie, and it's only been out for 2 weeks. It is sparking this, something I'm kind of afraid of. They're going to make an R-rated Wolverine movie, which I can see that happening. I'm okay with that. Wolverine is a character that I think should be rated R. But I'm kind of afraid that we're going to get kind of oversaturated in rated R comic book movies because people don't get that Deadpool is it's a rarity. I mean, the movie made $150 million its opening weekend. It's very rare for an R-rated film to do so, but Deadpool had all the right elements working for it. It's a character that needed to be R and worked very well within that. We don't need to get an Iron Man R-rated film. They don't need to go crazy with it. But Deadpool, guys, what a great movie. I was late to the party, and I saw it last night. I have not one bad thing to say about this film. It is, I don't want to say it's the best superhero film that I've ever seen because that's not true, but it is the best comic book movie I have ever seen. It is a comic book watching it. It is the character Wade Wilson taken from the page and put on the big screen. A perfect adaptation and done so well. The comedy, the raunchiness, and within all of that comedy and joke, it's like watching a stand-up routine for 2 hours. Like, there's joke, and you're laughing and you miss something, so it makes you want to see it again because you want to see what jokes you missed. And this love story between these two horrible people, you feel for these characters so much. It is so well done because you want him to save her at the end. I cannot say anything. I'm going to let somebody else talk because I don't want to spoil everybody else's thoughts and opinions. But Dan, what were your feelings going into Deadpool?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, they did everything right. The only thing I didn't like was when Deadpool came out in his bathrobe and told me to go away. And then I wanted to stay and watch it more, and then the theater ushers came in and they made me leave, and I couldn't watch it again. But yeah, I mean, they really captured the character of Deadpool and the world of Deadpool. They used, Weasel, which is one of my favorite side characters in Deadpool. And they did it really well. I mean, everything got its own screen time. Even, the cab driver was awesome.
I'm going to get into that. Oh, my God.
I can't, yeah, I mean, the only thing I guess I could say was that, the bad guys didn't, they were just kind of like relatively nondescript bad guys, but I didn't care. So
as the credits described it, a British villain.
Yeah. Yes, that was awesome. And yeah, it's great. Go see the movie if you haven't yet, but you probably have because it's made so much money already. Go see it again.
Yeah, I hope that the fact that we said Deadpool spoilers discussion means that you've seen this, and if not, then go see it after you watch us talk about it. It's going to be worth it anyway. Mike, I know you have a video on your channel, but what are your thoughts on this film?
Yeah, I will agree with you. It's not my favorite superhero movie, definitely, but it's definitely the funniest one and the one I've had a really good time at in the theaters for a while. Like some superhero movies, like let's say Dark Knight, you can just sit there and just get into like how intense it gets. But this one is the one I've laughed out loud the most at, definitely in a long time. And I mentioned in my review, it's what if Mel Brooks made a superhero movie? Because it's got a lot of that self-referential meta humor going on for it. And you were mentioning earlier, Jason, how Deadpool leapt off the comic page into the cinema, essentially. Well, that's because Deadpool never left the comic page. He's fully aware of what he is, and I feel that's been the big appeal of all the marketing and been the big appeal of this movie, is he's fully aware that he is fictional, that he is here to serve a certain need for the audience, and the fact that he plays into that and panders to it in a very lighthearted and jovial way while still being badass is something special, I feel. And yeah, definitely the villain is very generic villain, but I think that's kind of the humor of it too, is that you don't want something that can overshadow the quirkiness and the wackiness of Deadpool, but I feel Francis does it very well. And that's the whole joke, is that he wants to be called by this other badass name, but every time Wade undermines him by saying, "I know you're a secret, Francis. You're named after. You tried to name yourself after the soap."
he spills it out in dead bodies.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd say definitely, like you were saying, for an X-Men universe movie, it's a good way to reintroduce this newly rebooted X-Men universe. Even though I know Max has his issue with Days of Future Past, if this is the angle they're going for with these new movies, with their approach to the X-Men too, I'm all for that. The fact that you have even references to the fact that, like, oh, we couldn't afford to bring, it's like we couldn't afford to have any of the bigger X-Men actors show up or anything like that, is a good kind of nod to, like, yeah, we understand. It's silly and fun, and we're still going to utilize some cool characters here. But yeah, I can't wait for a sequel. I hope Keira Knightley shows up.
Andy, who's watching us right now, says Deadpool was great for the opening alone. Yes, that opening, what was it? Produced by Asshats?
Yes. Directed by an overpaid. Oh god, dipshit or something like that.
Directed by a massive tool or something like that. Can I say this is the best superhero soundtrack I've heard in a long time.
Oh yeah, well. I agree. It's just so perfect. Yeah, that's definitely one of the. I would have to say one of the funnest superhero movies I've been to in a while, where I'm just laughing, having fun, just enjoying it. It's kind of funny that it came out in February, because it really feels like a movie that could come out in the middle of summer and just make way more money than it might make now. But we'll see. Maybe it'll magically make it. But it was one of the funnest experiences I've had. It's definitely, if nothing else, just going to the theater and just getting that vibe from the other people that you're watching it with as everyone's enjoying this movie. And it's just hilarious to watch people's reactions, or even hear them, as the credits start rolling at the beginning, just because you're not expecting it at all, and you just hear all this shit, and people are like, what?
And here's the thing. I know before there was that whole thing about... My opinion on this has kind of changed a little bit after actually experiencing it in a theater with some kids in the theater, is that everyone was afraid, like, oh, think of the children, how they're going to be affected by this thing full of blood and guts and nudity. And you know what? As I was leaving the theater, honest to God, the only thing I heard these, like, 10-year-old kids talking about was just like, man, was that just so cool how, like, he made fun of the guy and everything. Like, they thought Deadpool was legitimately funny and stuff like that and everything. They weren't talking about, like, oh, it was so cool and that dude's head exploded. Ugh. Like, they just admitted just, like, they had a good time with it, but that it was just a funny movie. And so I'm kind of glad they stuck to their guns with the R rating because people are going to take their kids to it regardless, so whatever.
Oh man, we got just so much to talk about. The sex scene in this film is one of the best sex scenes in any film ever. They're going through each of the holidays, and then they get to Woman's Day, and she's ramming into him, and he's like, no.
That was pretty hilarious. But here's the thing, too, is that, you know what? This is actually, in a weird way, the perfect Valentine's Day movie. Because there are really legitimately sweet scenes between those two. Like when he finds out he has cancer and stuff like that. Their whole interaction after that moment is really kind of cool and real, and they have great chemistry. Even during that whole sex montage, when it cuts to, Lent, they're just sitting across from each other, just reading books. And even in that scene where they're just like, you know, Happy Lent or whatever, and even then you're just like, oh, that's adorable. It's like, this is actually a really romantic movie in a way. Yeah, oh, go ahead, Bill.
He proposes with a ring pop. I mean, just like that whole thing. It's like, it's so raunchy, but they have so much. I guess it's just their acting ability. They bring such a wholesomeness to that moment that you're like, oh my god, this is believable, and it's like a real love story. It's not just raunchy sex with just all this craziness.
Where'd you get the ring pop from?
Yeah.
His pants down. He doesn't have any pants on.
And hey, let's put it this way. After doing a cat and mouse game with Mal for a season, Inara's entitled to getting some, like, official romantic stuff. So
that's right. What was another good scene? His little hand.
Oh.
With the blind lady. It's gonna feel real big tonight.
That's another relationship from the comics I really enjoyed as well. And even though they didn't have as many scenes together, like, it was really kind of a cool, like, I've always established, like, Blind Al and Deadpool to have, like, this mean older sister with her bratty little brother type thing going, and they really kind of hammered that home in just a couple of scenes. And, like, it was really sweet and endearing.
Well, I mean, I just love kids now are going to have their version of the Black Knight from Monty Python as Deadpool tries to beat the crap out of Colossus.
With his little T-Rex arm.
His little T-Rex. He's like, oh, I'm a T-Rex.
But as he's leaving, to go for the final battle, somewhere in this apartment is 40 kilos of cocaine and the cure for blindness.
Happy hunting or something like that.
Right next to the cure for blindness.
Right next to the cure for blindness.
And Colossus was used really well too.
Getting to your kind of concern about the R-rated aspect of it. I mean, there have been R-rated comic book movies before. Blade, for example, the Blade movies. Granted, they weren't as successful probably as Deadpool was, but I mean, they were well received too and well balanced, I feel. But I don't think it's gonna. I personally don't believe it will be like all of a sudden the studios will be like over glorification of everything. With Wolverine, I feel you can get away with that. Mm-hmm. With some other characters, maybe.
Watchmen.
Watchmen. The fact that we'll get into another topic later, they might be doing a Killing Joke with an R rating and stuff like that. But I don't feel that's gonna be a trend that's gonna ride waves because that's been around for a while. It just so happens that Deadpool will probably be the gold standard now for that type of comic book movie.
Yeah, well, it's a standard for just R-rated movies, right, Jason? Like, didn't it set records, period, just for being R and doing this?
Deadpool,
it did better than The Matrix Reloaded, which was the highest-grossing R-rated film ever.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it beat out Star Wars in, what was it, Russia or the Ukraine or something?
Russia, yeah.
Russia?
Yep. Yeah, so I'm okay with R-rated comic book movies. I love Watchmen. I'm just saying, you know how it is in Hollywood. If one thing is successful, they got to find all these things. I mean, we're in 50 uh, cinematic universes now with Transformers, GI Joe, and all these other things because of Marvel. I just don't want them to get silly with it. We don't need a what a fantastic. I guess Fantastic Four would be better rated R. At least anything couldn't be worse than what we got. The X-Men universe does lend itself. It could be a R-rated universe if it wanted to. So I'm okay with them moving. I think X-Force they're saying that could be rated R, and the Wolverine film.
Which I get the X-Force thing too, because X-Force is supposed to be a grittier, more mercenary style compared to the X-Men. So, okay, I'm cool with that.
But we could talk about Deadpool all day. Maybe we should do a special cast for this because I think we could spend hours discussing. Okay, one more thing we're going to talk about real quick with this movie is at the end when Colossus is giving him the speech not to shoot the guy. Did anybody think that he wasn't going to shoot the guy? And then Colossus vomits.
I knew he was. I didn't know he was going to vomit at the end of it. Yeah, I'm like, Colossus, really? This is the worst thing you've seen? Come on.
I left the theater last night. It was about midnight, right? Midnight, 12:15. And I turned to my wife and goes, "Let's go see it again right now." It's first time I've ever done that. I've never left a movie wanting to immediately walk back into the theater and see it again. Like Dan said, they made us leave. Else I would have sat there and watched it a couple more times. I'm seriously thinking about taking a couple, 4 or 5 hours and going to see it a couple more times this weekend because it was that much fun. And you miss jokes from laughing. So the next time you go, you're going to get something new. And you can't say that for a lot of films. So Deadpool was awesome. Anybody want to add anything? Because, we've gone 22 minutes on Deadpool.
One last thing. Honestly, I kind of feel my mom would enjoy this. Maybe.
My mom would probably tell me I'm going to hell if she watched this movie. Dan, you want anything to add?
Just unlike the rated R superhero movies in general. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're always gonna have like copycats that are gonna try like the same thing that Deadpool did, or whatever. But I mean, they're probably already making crappy films to begin with, so I don't think it's something to worry about.
Yeah.
It's true.
All right, Deadpool news continues, and there is a petition online right now to get Deadpool to host Saturday Night Live. Not Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool to host Saturday Night Live, and I think that is brilliant. I would love to see Deadpool host SNL. There was an interview I saw with Deadpool on YouTube, and they were interviewing him, like, what are you going to do next? And he's like, I'm going to remake all of Ryan Reynolds' movies, only this time I'm going to make them not suck. It'd be so funny if they did an SNL skit where Deadpool is remaking some of Ryan Reynolds' movies, like do like a little Van Wilder skit or something like that. There's so much potential with this idea that they need to make it happen.
Is that the one where he's got his fake laugh on?
Yeah.
Because that's the best fake laugh ever.
Yes.
Check out the video. It's fun. It's like, yeah.
I'll tweet it out tonight for anybody who's following us. So what do you think of Deadpool hosting SNL, Mr. Dan?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, you could put Deadpool in everything. In fact, like the last X-Men movies that I didn't like, you could just put Deadpool in for Wolverine, and I would like them again.
Well,
just put him in everything.
With Hugh Jackman leaving, I have a feeling Deadpool is going to be the one who's going to kind of be leading the charge now. Mike, your thoughts on this?
I posted on my Facebook a while back about, was it a day or two ago when this news came out, and I'm like, it'd be a fun idea. Realistically, it's not going to happen, though, because here's the whole thing, and I made a joke about it on my Facebook as well, saying like SNL hasn't been interested in doing comedy since the late 90s. But in all seriousness, I don't feel this would be something Lorne Michaels and those people over at Rockefeller would pursue anyways, because they would be like, oh, well, Deadpool's not mainstream enough. It would just go right over our audience's heads, his style of humor, which I kind of get a little, because his style of humor, you'd have to unleash a very raunchy Deadpool. And even though it is late at night, it's still very PG-13 humor and so forth. So it would be a lot of bleeps for sure. And it's just that I think in order to unleash Deadpool, a.k.a. Ryan Reynolds, because let's face it, they're the same person now at this point, at his full comedic potential, you have to go raunchy. If they had Deadpool on Bill Maher real time, possibly that would be better. Or last week with John Oliver or something like that. If they had him show up and do some sketches, or have him show up on like some more raunchy show. SNL is a little too soft, I feel, for a character like Deadpool.
I mean, I'm going to go back to the 90s. Who was it that got kicked off for trying to be raunchy? Oh my god, I can't remember his name.
A lot
Dirty
of people
Work.
did.
No, Dirty Work.
Norm Macdonald?
Norm Macdonald.
He got fired for making fun of O.J. Simpson.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's a little too topical at this point.
He called him a crack whore.
Oh, we got some.
That's my Norm Macdonald.
We got comments flowing in. New Trick Podcast writes, Keira Knightley, dude, bite your tongue. That bitch had better not come jacking up my movie.
But dude, come on. She doesn't have to be Cable like it was suggested, but she could be Domino because she was already in a movie called Domino, and they can make fun of the fact that this Domino will probably be better than that Domino.
It's true. And then Andy writes, and the fight at the end of Deadpool was on a helicarrier, which I did notice that. It just didn't say shield on it. It looked just like the helicarrier from the Avengers. And
I read that it was like the design was supposed to kind of loosely resemble a helicarrier. And also Hydra Bob showed up, but you couldn't call him Hydra Bob, you just called him Bob.
And the pizza boy at the beginning of the film worked for Feige Pizza.
Nice.
Oh, geez.
It all depends on what you can get away with, because, I mean, he mentions, like, what, do you expect Sam Jackson was going to show up here at the end or something like that?
Well, I was reading somewhere, I guess a lot of the general public doesn't realize that this was a Fox Marvel movie, and they think it was a Marvel movie, and Disney isn't saying that it's not, and Fox is definitely not saying that it's not, because Disney is releasing the merchandise, and Fox, is making the movie, and they don't want people to remember the Fantastic Four, so they're okay with them thinking it's a Disney film, and Disney is going to make money on the merchandise, so they're okay with Fox.
Yeah. So, and also, there's a whole, like, the actors don't care, because, what was it, Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. are now fighting for Ryan Reynolds on Twitter for them to join up on Team Cap or Team Iron Man.
I saw that because Chris Evans tweets Ryan Reynolds and says, I really like Daredevil, and then Ryan Reynolds tweeted hashtag Team Cap, and then Robert Downey tweets Ryan Reynolds and goes, well, when he kicks you out for swearing too much, come see me. It was pretty funny.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I mean, even the figureheads of these franchises now are like, let's have fun with this. Like, and you can do that with a character like Deadpool, because he's all about making fun and having fun.
That's very true. And I love, this is probably my favorite Stan Lee cameo. Running the strip club.
I heard Stan Lee's last Comic-Con or Comic-Con convention appearance was going to be in Toronto.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like his last, because he's just getting old. Yeah. That should be his new job. I mean, aside from just publishing and blogging now, he should just be like, go around to random strip clubs and DJ or MC for them.
I thought you were going to say just randomly show up in movies, cameos.
Dude, he can do that too. If he ain't going to be in Mallrats, I'm going to be disappointed. I think he is in Mallrats, but yeah.
We'll just get him a trailer like on the back lot, and he can just wander through like everybody's production. It's kind of weird. Going. How's it going?
What's this one? This is the Harry Potter remake. I'll be a Dumbledore.
Guy's got a scary suit.
I like how we got back to the Deadpool review. We were talking about Saturday Night Live. So thank you, Andy, and New Trick Podcast, because you got us talking about that movie again. Man, it's such a good... Anyway, SNL. I agree that, Deadpool would work better on one of those other shows, Mike, but it would just be so cool for SNL to embrace that edge that they once had and let Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, come on and be, who they truly are, and just let it revive the show a little bit because
SNL's not about cool, dude. SNL's about trending and all that.
Now it is. Yeah.
See, the only thing I've liked out of SNL since the 90s has been the Lonely Island crew. I really like their stuff, but yeah, I agree with Mike. I've sat down and watched it a few times. I mean, there's a few times where Timberlake hosted, and I thought he had some funny sketches, but for the most part, there hasn't really been anything great on Saturday Night Live in a long time. So
my favorite part of SNL stuff these days is when the actors and the guest hosts completely just chuck the idea out the window. Are like, fuck it, this isn't funny. We're just getting to have fun now. Like when I saw that clip of like all these people meeting for being probed by aliens, and Ryan Gosling's just like, screw this, I'm just gonna laugh about this. It's like, this is stupid. Or when Louis C.K. showed up and it's just Louis C.K. ideas, and he's like, I'm not going by the script, whatever.
I mean, that's probably the problem with having Deadpool on there, because I have a feeling Ryan Reynolds would do that. He would go completely off the cuff, and that probably scares them more than anything, honestly. Like, never mind the fact that the edge. Like, even if they could beep at all, he would probably blow up half their stuff. And can they do it like they used to?
But I mean, on that same side of the coin, I mean, you can't make SNL worse.
This is true.
So I mean, just
true.
have Deadpool show up and do whatever the hell he wants. I mean, your ratings are going to spike. You can't ruin the show by now, so it doesn't matter.
It would honestly spike interest, I'm sure, amongst the geek culture, for sure.
Well, I think it would probably spike just anyways. It would just spike views just because of the movie. It's already in the news. It's the highest. Now they do have like a short window to take advantage of that, because you do that 2 months from now, you're not going to get more than a spike than what you're talking about, Mike, of the geek culture and maybe the people that remember the movie.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: is like the fact that SNL. I've always had this feeling in the past, in recent years, especially after. Well, now even when SNL turned 40, that it views itself as an institution as opposed to just a show. Whereas the word institution kind of carries this very hoity-toity thing. It's like, oh, well, we got the cream of the crop guest hosts and cream of the crop guest artists, even though it's just whoever's popular at the time. They decide to like treat it as though like, oh no, this is going to be very culturally relevant to us in about 20 years from now. And I have a feeling like something like Deadpool, which they're kind of like, well, the geeks love it, sure, let's do it.
All right, well, let's move to this story, because I don't know how Dan feels about it. I know, Dan, you're a Roger Corman fan, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, Roger Corman is going to return to do Death Race 2050. Dan, what are your thoughts?
It can't be worse than having Juggalos do it. Sorry, Juggalo listeners and watchers. Yeah, that's cool. I love the original Death Race. As long as he's not directing it, because that would take a long time to make. I'm certainly cool with him having his say in it. Actually, Part 3 wasn't that bad of the new reboot. But yeah, I would like to see what happens to Frankenstein and his weird grenade hand. And
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Dan on the fact that, like, directing it, maybe not, but definitely bring him on as a producer, a consultant, or something like that. The dude, here's the thing, and again, we're going to bring it back to Deadpool a little bit because we talked about this beforehand, too, but the fact that they were able to accomplish that kind of spectacle for the minimal budget they did have, that speaks very much to something that is very Corman-esque as well, because Corman's all about, like, what big, extravagant thing can I show for you that doesn't cost upwards of like hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's where people get their most creative and their most like innovative. And Corman, I feel, can bring that energy back to movie making definitely when he does it right, especially. I mean, yeah, it's cutting corners and you can be considered kind of low budget, but at the same time, if you're able to deliver in the way that obviously Deadpool has shown off, why not bring him back to Death Race? Imagine what he could do now for what is constituted as being low budget these days.
I am loving this right now. Everybody who is listening now or just joined us, you can tweet at us at 3 Geeks Podcast and send us questions or comments. We're getting quite a few of them, and we really appreciate that. New Trick Podcast writes, SNL needs Deadpool more than he needs SNL. And trust me, SNL could really use some Deadpool. I agree wholeheartedly.
You know what we forgot to talk about was Ryan Reynolds' actual response to that.
Oh, yeah. You got it?
I don't. It's a video, right? And he parodies Kanye.
Oh.
I have not seen it.
I'd heard about this, but I haven't seen it yet either.
I'll have to check that out.
Basically, what he was mentioning in the comment, it's like, yeah, even Deadpool says, like, man, they need me more than I need them and stuff like that.
Nice.
We got another comment that says, as long as it's more like the original and not the Jason Statham one.
Sound like very different movies.
Yep, I'm all for Stathamless Death Race. That's a little too serious.
Stallone back.
Have we
That he was in that.
have we discussed Kindergarten Cop 2 yet?
No, not yet. But quick on the Death Race thing. If is Stallone up for Best Supporting Actor for the Oscars?
Yes.
He is. If he wins and he gets up there and his acceptance speech is like, I want to thank everybody. I'll carry this enthusiasm into my next project, Death Race 2050.
Stallone's quitting, isn't he?
No, he's just
out of Hollywood anyway. But I don't know.
Start directing, right?
No, he's gonna focus on more movies that involve acting talent. It's funny. I can't remember which. I watch all of these award shows. I can't remember which one it was. But Stallone goes up and he goes, "Thank you for this award." I'm paraphrasing. He goes, "I've made a lot of turds in my career."
Dude, he was making softcore corn softcore corn in the beginning of his career.
Softcore corn.
Softcore corn.
Corn that melts in your mouth when you pop it in.
Martinis, they're a hell of a thing, gentlemen.
This is one bedroom apartment with an ear of corn. Like, I really good job.
All right. Yeah, so they're making a Kindergarten Cop 2. I know this wasn't in our notes for the show today, but we're going to discuss it since we're on a bunch of little tangents right now anyway. But they couldn't get Arnold Schwarzenegger back, which I don't understand why not. It's not like his career is doing a whole lot of anything. So they found the other guy who's sitting around waiting for a job. Dolph Lundgren is going to be in Kindergarten Cop 2. And I watched this trailer, and
It was a trailer.
I felt really bad for Dolph Lundgren, which says a lot because I'm not really a Dolph Lundgren fan. I did like him in the Expendables films. I thought he was pretty fun in there. But, yeah, Mike, you have a reaction video to this on your channel, which is youtube.com/McGTV.
I don't have a reaction to it. I mentioned it in a couple of posts, but yeah, maybe the reason Arnold didn't come back is because they found out it was a tumor. I don't know, but yeah, I saw the 30-second trailer myself. It's a direct-to-video thing, so I'm not expecting much from it. And I agree with you, Jason. This is weird to say, but I mean it shouldn't be because Dolph Lundgren is actually like a genius.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's got like an IQ of like what 160 or something like that.
Yeah.
And like he's got a schload of degrees and everything like that. And dude, you don't need this, Dolph. You don't need this. Like just keep cheap cash in, man. It's like. When I find his trailer for that Brain Games thing on Nat Geo to be more of an upstanding piece of media than Kindergarten Cop 2, that's saying something.
Wow. So this is a straight to DVD?
No, it's going to be a theatrical, yes.
What?
It's going straight to DVD.
Oh, I was going to say, holy shit.
Yeah, I was about to say, Jason, what are you
Theatrical.
saying?
Hey, if Sandler can still put movies in the theater, there's no reason Dolph Lundgren can't put movies in the theater.
I don't know. Sandler's at least got name recognition. I don't know if Lundgren does anymore.
I don't know, man.
I respect Dolph more than Sandler. That's
No, especially, I mean, now especially, I could watch the worst Dolph Lundgren movie more than I could watch Pixels. I hated that movie. If you want to know how much I hate that movie, watch the podcast from 4 weeks ago, and you'll hear all about it. Dan, your thoughts on Kindergarten Cop 2 returning?
I mean, I'm kind of happy that Dolph Lundgren still gets a paycheck for these things, because if you look back through his career, like The Expendables is probably the best like star-powered thing that he's been in. I mean, remember he was He-Man.
Yep.
And he was also Nameless Good Guy in that I Come in Peace movie, which was only made so that he could say, "You go in pieces." At the end of the film.
Rocky 4, dude. In the Name of the King 3. Come on.
In the Name of the King 3? I need to buy that.
I don't know. 2 or 3. I think there's 3 of them.
He's in the second one. Randy Couture is in the third one.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Go out and buy part 3 then.
No, Kindergarten Cop 2 is more of Randy Couture's type area at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. In the Name of the King 3, Scorpion King, 5 Gajillion, and Kindergarten Cop 2. But I don't know. I mean, he's still getting a paycheck. He didn't say no to it, so I guess I can't say no to him in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, I'm sure he's not going to be like, here's the thing, he's going to be like, hey, a job's a job, man. It's like, whatever.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. We're running a little long tonight, which is fine. The last story I have is Batman Killing Joke is rumored to be R-rated, which I think we've kind of speculated that it's probably going to go that way. And, you know, with all the new development with Deadpool, the studios are seeing that it is a viable business. And Batman is a character that for a long time people have wanted to see the more edgy version. And the Dark Knight Returns animated films were not PG kids movies. No. So it's not really a huge shock to me that they're going to go down this route. And the DC animated films are, I like them a lot, and I'm not really an animated guy. I'm not really somebody who's into a lot of animated films, but I really like the DC stuff. Philip, have you?
Oh yeah, I definitely enjoyed them, and I'm not surprised by this. I mean, it kind of makes sense. The DC animated always tends to go a little more edgy. Marvel, back when they were releasing animated stuff, never really tried it. But it makes sense for DC, especially for the Killing Joke. So it'll be interesting, kind of see it when it's released. And to me, it's not that surprising. If this were something that's going to be released in theatrical release, animated, R-rated, that could be interesting, because that would be very different. But for straight to DVD, for DC animated, I expected it.
Dan?
Just being like fully selfish for me. I mean, I don't care what it's rated, as long as it follows the story and it has decent animation. With that story, that being said, I think you can get away with a nice solid R.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, what you mentioned about the DC animated stuff rings true. Like, the DC animated stuff gets away with a lot more than even the mainstream DC feature films do. Yeah. Like, they actually show blood in these direct-to-video things, as opposed to Nolan's Batman, where it's like, you guess people get shot, or guess people get cut up, I guess. But, no, I agree. Yeah, it just magically disappears. Very absorbent fabrics in the mainstream DC movies. But no, Killing Joke, I'm with Dan. As long as it's a faithful adaptation, and honestly, I know this has been kind of the hot button issue for a while with regards to the Killing Joke, is the whole, like, do we really need to show the horrible things that happen to certain characters and everything like that, and how is this not, like, misogynistic in a way and everything? I'm like, well, it's someone's interpretation. It's someone's way of telling a story. I feel it would be a disservice to cut corners on that story. And honestly, I won't be viewing this as, like, oh, this is the penultimate Killing Joke experience. No, this will be a nice companion piece to the original. Because, I'm not going to lie to you, ever since Batman the Animated Series came out and I started reading Killing Joke, Mark Hamill's Joker and Kevin Conroy's Batman have been the only voices in my head telling me that story. So this would bring it to completion in a way, to have that finally represented. So, yeah, I'm kind of glad they're going to go for that R-rated edge, I guess, because that's what the story needs.
Oh, yeah, I already went to you, Philip. Anyway, I'm not going to do the box office report this week just because we're running short on time, but Deadpool won $55 million this weekend, so that's all anybody really needs to know. Moving on, Philip, you got any video game news this week?
So yeah, I have a few things about games coming out this week, and then I'm handed over to Dan to talk about Fire Emblem Fates, I believe it is.
Yes.
But yeah, so coming out this week is Garden Warfare 2, which is Plants vs. Zombies game. The first one was actually really unique and original. It was basically kind of a first-person shooter, but animated, kind of childish, I guess. But it was a really fun game. I'll be interested to see how they've changed it because the game really wasn't that deep. It's fun for a little while, but I don't think it's got the mileage that Call of Duty will probably get. But we'll see kind of how they did it. I know they revamped a lot of characters. They changed a lot of things to try and make it more interesting. So I'm definitely going to hopefully try that out by next week and be able to talk about it, as well as Far Cry Primal, which actually is a game they kept quiet for a while, which is surprising because it actually seems like a really interesting premise that basically it's Far Cry but set where in the prehistoric era, where basically you're a caveman and you're going to be able to use I can't remember exactly the animals. I think it's a saber-toothed tiger you can befriend and woolly mammoth and something like that, and actually use that to take over other villages. And it's kind of be more about survival. I'm kind of curious to see how they make that into a game. So that's actually interesting. So those are the two games that I'm looking forward to this week.
Sounds like a very dark version of Ice Age.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. People got to die for you to live, and you get to kill. Oh my God, what was John Leguizamo's character in that movie? I can't remember. The annoying
Sprat, I think.
A sloth or something. He was a sloth. I know that much.
Exactly. There you go. Everyone will hunt out his character.
Ray Romano's woolly mammoth being like, lay waste to this village, Ma.
That's awesome.
Quick business notes. Check us out on iTunes and Stitcher. Just type in 3 Geeks Podcast and subscribe. Please leave a rating. Our podcast is moving up, and it's all with your help, so you can continue to help support us by just clicking. Also, check out Mike's channel, youtube.com/Mike McGTV. Hit that subscribe button and let Mike know what you think of his videos. And Dan, what else you got for us?
On Friday, Fire Emblem Fates was released for the 3DS. It was anticipated for quite a while, and it gets complicated because you've got two versions. You've got Conquest and you've got Birthright. Conquest is for it's kind of like easy mode. If you've never played it before, try that. Birthright is hard mode, but they're both different stories.
Oh.
It is a strategy RPG where you move your little guys on the big map. Then the opposing team moves their little guys on the big map, and then they beat the crap out of each other. It's got easy mode. It also has the regular Fire Emblem mode, which is permadeath. So if your guy dies, he dies. He doesn't come back in the next round or anything. He just stays on the battlefield and rots. I picked it up on Friday morning because I was super emphatic to get it, and I've put about 13 hours into it so far.
Nice.
It is really, really awesome, and I suggest you check it out.
Nice.
Also, you want comic book news?
Yeah, go
Sure.
for it, buddy.
All right. Pretty much the news that's been around all week is DC's Rebirth. After the New 52 ends, apparently there's going to be Rebirth #1, which is an 80-page one-shot special that sets the tone, and that they're dialing every what do you call it? Every book back to 1, except for Action Comics or Detective Comics, because those are their highest numbers, and they're not messing with that.
Yeah, those are the ones that start it all, so it's like...
Yeah, they're not doing that at all. But they're trying to make it all into one DC world again, and have it, have all the characters in one world so they can interact and not drive you crazy with multiple crises and everything else. what's cool is after Rebirth 1 and everything dials back, they're going to sell them for lower prices, but many of them are going to have two issues per month. And you've also got Jim Lee doing Suicide Squad, which is awesome. And I might actually have to pick that up now. But yeah, it sounds like a good plan. I don't know. Mike?
From the way it kind of sounds is that it's supposed to work on two fronts. Like, one, it's supposed to kind of woo back some people it might have lost with its hard reboot of the universe and kind of the tossing away of a lot of like long-standing continuity. And also what they're kind of doing over at Marvel too, where they're like, okay, we got these movie properties and stuff up and coming. We're gonna play them up more, significantly than we have in the past. Because when the New 52 reboot came about in 2011, like they had a lot of stuff pinning on that succeeding, like a lot of the Wildstorm Incorporation stuff. They were really like, okay, cool, we got the Wildstorm characters now. We're going to incorporate them into the universe and play them out. But now, like, I don't think they even use any of them really so much anymore. I don't know, Dan.
I don't think so. I kind of lost all interest in most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I still read Constantine. That's the only DC one that I read, and that just rebooted again. What, 6 months ago? So I don't even know.
I mean, as long as as long as they just tell interesting stories. Like, here's the whole thing. Consistently, the only New 52 thing I've really followed since the beginning of it was the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo Batman series. And you know what? Sure, it plays loose with continuity. Like, when they started out, they were saying, like, oh, a lot of Batman's continuity remains intact, but as you go on, you find out really not a lot of it has, and they kind of showed off their own origin story of Batman with Zero Year. But at the same time, it was a good story, and the characters were compelling. And here's the thing: sure, do what you want, bring back a little bit more of an established continuity, soft reboot, but just make the characters fascinating. Because that book has been consistently like intriguing to read. At least it's got really good ideas in it, and it's played up the character of Gotham City more in that aspect and made it like have more history to it, even though it has nothing to do with what I've read before from like 90s or 80s or 70s Batman. But it's still a fun Batman tale, and that's what I feel is kind of needed right now in comics in general, is stop focusing so much on the idea of continuing a continuity or starting your own. Just tell interesting stories.
And you don't have to have a whole universe jam-packed with everybody to do it. But
right,
we're going. I mean, one of the Owls part. That was really cool.
If they make it work, they make it work. But that's what they were trying for in 2011. It had hits and misses.
Yeah. Also, Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez, the guys that made Lock and Key, are rebooting Tales from the Dark Side, which I actually really want to check out. And David Walker, the guy that used to write Shaft, just released, or is writing on the just released Power Man and Iron Fist, which I am also pumped to get, and I'll probably pick up tomorrow. That's all I got.
Nice. All right, well, that is our show this evening. We thank everybody for tuning in. We love the interaction that we had today, so we appreciate it. We love all the love we've been getting on Twitter. Thanks to everybody that's going over there to support Mike. You can follow Mike on Twitter at Mike McGmusic. And subscribe to Mike's channel at youtube.com/Mike McGTV. Mike does a lot of collaborations with the guys from here. He also works with a mutual friend of ours, Jason, over on Never Ending Radical Dudes. You can check out a lot of Mike's stuff there too. Check us out at YouTube. Obviously, if you're watching us now, it is youtube.com/3 Geeks Network, and on Stitcher and iTunes at 3 Geeks Podcast. We thank you all for tuning in. Leave comments below. We'll read them on the air next week. We love the interaction. We thank you very much for tuning in. And from all of us, have a great evening.